Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Imagine doing your holiday shopping, minding your business, when suddenly chaos erupts. A mother screaming, her child is sobbing, and a thief is standing just a few feet away, pretending nothing happened. This wasn't just any theft, it was a grown woman stealing from a little girl, and trust me, she did not get away with it. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Retail nightmare. A woman stole from a little girl in broad daylight. Over the holidays, I worked part-time at a certain popular store. Now, I've been working in retail for longer than I care to admit, and I've seen some truly heinous behavior. But this took the cake. It was a day or two after Christmas, and I was at my register. I happened to glance up in time to see a woman walking down the aisle with her daughter who looked to be about 7 or 8. The little girl was carrying an American Girl doll she presumably had just gotten for Christmas. It jumped out to me because I don't know whether she had some sort of clip-in extensions for the doll or what, but it had a few streaks of pink and blue in its hair. I remember thinking how my 8-year-old self would have loved the ability to add fun colors to my doll's hair. I gave the girl and her mom a quick smile and went back to ringing people out. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with American Girl, these are not cheap dolls. Last I checked, they go for anywhere from $100 to $140 just for the doll itself. Any outfit you buy is going to cost another $30 to $50. As I'm finishing up with my current customer, I notice a middle-aged woman standing in a different line looking around. Her eyes landed on me, and seeing that I didn't have anybody after this customer, made a beeline for my register. Okay, whatever. Most people are in a hurry nowadays. She had with her her own daughter, maybe about 3. The woman starts putting her items on my belt while making friendly small talk with me. Suddenly, I hear a woman scream at the top of her lungs, "Whoever took my daughter's doll better give it back right now." I look up and see the woman from earlier marching down the aisle in front of the registers. She's dragging her daughter along with her. The daughter's sobbing, and there's no American Girl doll in sight. Just about the entire front of the store is staring at this mother and daughter. She turned to her daughter and demanded to know why she had set the doll down. The little girl started sobbing even harder and screamed, "I don't know, but I want it back. I want it. I want it." The lady I was helping shook her head and turned to her daughter. "I better not ever see you acting like that," she said. "I'll beat your butt." The mother, somehow even angrier and louder than before, screamed, "Who the F stole my daughter's doll?" At this point, my customer started rearranging some jackets she had in her cart and kind of chuckled to herself. "Bad day for anyone else to bring a doll in," she mumbled. I looked down and for just a second caught a glimpse of an American Girl doll with pink and blue streaks in its hair. I froze immediately, started racking my brain, trying to figure out what I should do. I obviously couldn't let this woman get away with this, but I also couldn't accuse the woman of stealing. By this point, the front-end manager had gotten involved in the situation. The mother, still screaming, was explaining to her that somebody had stolen her daughter's brand new American Girl doll, and my manager was trying to calm her down. I couldn't call her over because the mother might follow, and I didn't want to risk some sort of fight ensuing. I quickly finished my transaction, and as soon as I handed off the receipt, I quickly jogged over to my manager. By this time, she and the mother and daughter were looking around where they'd last had the doll. I pulled my manager to the side and told her that the woman I just rang out had the doll. The mother overheard me and, as expected, took off running after the thief. My manager ran out after her and radioed for store security to follow. They screamed at each other in the parking lot for a bit. Finally, the cops were called and the American Girl doll was returned to its rightful owner. To this day, I can't get over the fact that this woman stole from a literal child. How low can you possibly be? That being said, I'm so glad you spoke up while also keeping in mind that a fight could have happened and tried to avoid it. It sucks that the screaming match between them couldn't be avoided, but at least you tried. What a relief that the doll was returned to the girl. And our second story. Supervisor demands I take breaks by the book, so I let the factory crash instead. Like many others before me, this is a simple one that happened a couple of years ago. I worked 12-hour shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. at a factory manufacturing hygienic products. We're supposed to have 5 paid breaks a night that last 10, 20, 10, 20, and 10 minutes. I was a lead and ran a crew of 3 other people. Being a lead, I took it upon myself to skip breaks if our manufacturing line was running bad or things needed to be fixed. We had a hot cafeteria that served food, but for night shift, this was only open 7 to 11. So if you didn't get out to break early to buy food or didn't bring your own, you were kind of SOL. The problem with the cafe was the workers were at the end of their shift and didn't care about us night shift workers, so they took their time making food. Simple salads would take around 10 minutes to put together, and being that your longest break was 20 minutes, it gave you no time to eat. So to the meat of it. Like I said, I skipped breaks pretty frequently to keep the line running good, sometimes 3 out of my 5 breaks. I forgot my lunch at home one night and figured I was going to grab some food on my 20-minute break. They took 12 minutes to make a salad, and I wasn't going to have it sit out or in the fridge because I wanted it fresh. So I took a 30-minute break to eat my food. I ended up skipping 2 more breaks that night. Right before the end of the night, though, my supervisor pulled me from the line, saying I can't be taking long breaks like that. We argued back and forth, saying since I skip breaks and the cafe takes forever to make food, one 30-minute break should be okay, but that the scheduled breaks aren't 30, so I shouldn't do that. I dropped it, but told him if I didn't have time to get food and eat, and I was still skipping breaks, I would take 30. He said he'd take corrective action. I did it one more time, and he gave me a verbal warning. Cue malicious compliance. I took every break right on the dot the next couple nights, lying down and needed me to do work. Told my techs to clean, and I'll fix it when I'm back. Machine calling out, if you see bad product, shut it down, and we'll figure it out when I get back. After about a week of this, I got asked in the end of the night meeting why my numbers were dropping and things have been getting worse. I told them I started taking all my breaks on time because my super told me off for taking a couple extra minutes to eat lunch. No one liked that super anyway, and they had talked to management about it. Well, technically, the policy states those break times are what we should be following. The fact I was skipping breaks and getting good numbers and it wasn't interfering with other crew members' breaks, it shouldn't be a problem. He still works there and makes everyone's life a living hell, cracking the whip and getting people in trouble for stupid stuff. But last I heard, he was under investigation about how he's running things. I left about 6 months after that, though, because of how he was trying to be more of a manager than the actual manager was, and had a terrible attitude doing it and made everything so stressful. You were literally sacrificing your own breaks to keep production running smoothly. And instead of acknowledging that, your supervisor decided to crack down on the one time you took a reasonable extra break to actually eat. Sounds like someone trying to justify their authority instead of actually managing effectively. And our next story, not a public trail, how I had to fight for my own backyard. Wife and I purchased our first and likely forever home a few months ago, 1.2 acres in an urbanish part of Raleigh, North Carolina. The property sat vacant for 2 years prior to our purchase. There's a communal well easement that extends into both ours and the neighbor's property, which is accessible by both a small footpath from a nearby cul-de-sac and a gravel road extending the opposite direction from the footpath to a nearby neighborhood street. There's also a nature trail / footpath sort of thing that comes from our neighbor's property and connects to what we have now learned is our gravel driveway. We, and apparently others in the neighborhood, thought the gravel driveway was easement for maintenance of the communal well. However, we paid for a survey which indicates the gravel driveway is our property and the short trail / footpath leading to the cul-de-sac is designated for maintenance. Ever since buying the home, we've been seeing 5 to 10-ish people per day walking to and from an adjoining trail down our gravel auxiliary driveway and continuing on down the neighborhood street. I've walked down to explore the trail they're coming from, and it connects to a dozen or so backyards and several neighborhood streets. Admittedly, it's a serene walk. Our auxiliary / gravel driveway has a drainage tunnel running perpendicular underneath it with a 10-foot steep drop-off on either side. I worry the day may come where a clumsy kid falls and we somehow end up getting sued. I put up no trespassing signs along with a note that reads, "This property sat vacant for an extended period of time prior to our purchase. We had a survey performed which indicated the well easement extending out in a 46-foot circular radius from the concrete box / communal well and the gravel drive being our property. Maintenance access to said well is via walking path from cul-de-sac. Our attorney advised us not to permit people walking through our property despite our insistence they're friendly neighbors merely passing through." As first-time homebuyers, we're doing things by the book and trying to cover our butts wherever possible. We recognize this has been a serene shortcut to walk through for quite some time and appreciate your understanding. And yet, people are still walking through our property. In their defense, the trail they're coming in through goes for a half mile or so before it dead ends at our no trespassing sign, from which one can easily see the neighborhood street they're trying to access not far away, so they now have to turn around and backtrack from where they came. Am I being a Karen, or is my concern of being sued legitimate? People walking by also makes my dogs go crazy. A large part of the appeal of this place before we bought it was the seclusion and privacy. I want to be able to walk out in the backyard to take a leak without worry of a kid walking by. Update. So I'm done. I'm building a fence. A tall, sturdy FU fence that makes it crystal clear that this shortcut is closed forever. I don't care if it ruins their serene walk or forces them to take the long way around. This is my home, not some scenic route for lazy neighbors who don't want to backtrack. And honestly, I shouldn't have to justify any of this. I shouldn't have to explain that I don't want my dogs freaking out all the time, that I don't want to look outside and see random people walking through my backyard, or that I'd like to be able to take a piss outside without worrying about some kid wandering by. And our last story. Grumpy neighbor hates my house. Here's the deal. I bought my house in a non-HOA community on purpose. I wanted to express myself and live in a neighborhood that felt unique, not one where every house is an earth tone clone. When I decided to repaint my house, I chose a soft peach with sage blue and soft pink accents. Think cheerful but classy, like something out of a Pinterest board for modern cottage vibes. My garden's equally whimsical, with wildflowers, sunflowers, etc. In short, my home radiates personality, and apparently my neighbor Paul hates every bit of it. From the start of my repainting project, Paul has made it his mission to complain about everything. The colors, the garden, even the flags. At first, I just brushed it off with a polite, "Sorry you feel that way," but he kept going. Eventually, I told him outright that if he wanted to live in a beige, boring community, there are plenty of HOA neighborhoods where he could thrive. That set him off. He grumbled about living here for 15 years, saying I was the one ruining the neighborhood. Fine, Paul, enjoy your time machine back to the beige 2000s. I'm staying put. The final straw came last weekend when I was adding pavers to the garden. Cute ones my 15-year-old niece and I had painted together. We turned them into ladybugs, turtles, and birds, and it was such a fun bonding project. Naturally, Paul came storming over, declaring them an eyesore. My niece was standing right there, and I was not about to hold back anymore. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "It's time for you to grow up and get the F over what I'm doing with my house." Cue his melodramatic rant about respect. "Do you know who you're talking to?" he bellowed like he's some sort of suburban monarch. I told him to go away and maybe find a hobby, adding, "If you have this much free time to complain about color, you need to get a life." Paul stomped off, shouting that I'm a nasty piece of work, which made my niece laugh so hard she almost fell over. Honestly, I was proud of that one. She'll probably use it as a comeback someday. And for those wondering, no, I don't care about swearing in front of her. She's 15, and let's be real, she's heard worse on TikTok. Later, one of the neighbors came by trying to play diplomat. She told me Paul's been venting to anyone who will listen about how disrespectful I am. She said I should try to be nicer because he's been in the neighborhood forever. I just smiled and said, well, if Paul's been here so long, he should have learned by now that neighbors come in all colors, just like my house. Paul can flap his yap all he wants, but I'm not changing my house or my attitude for him. If he wants to waste his days being the grumpy neighborhood critic, that's his prerogative. Meanwhile, I'll be out back painting more pavers and adding even more joy to my home. Paul clearly thinks he's the self-appointed sheriff of the neighborhood, and the badge he's wearing must say Buzzkill in Chief. I mean, imagine having so little going on in your life that you have time to obsess over someone else's paint colors and a garden that's literally spreading joy and creativity. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.